Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alternative Movement Podcast, where we talk everything adaptive training. My name's Craig. I'm your host, and today we have Daniel, and I'm probably going to pronounce your surname wrong. Is it Dawoud?
Dawoud.
Dawoud. Damn it. Close. Dawoud.
Yeah. I've had very different variations of it, so done pretty well there.
I was close, was I?
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Daniel, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. How are yourself?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you today. So Daniel is a coach. He's actually a PT, and he's joined us today, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself and what he does within the industry. Daniel, cool. So let's start this off. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Who are you?
So, as you just said, my name's Daniel Dawoud, 28 years old. I'm from the sunny, amazing town of Wigan. My disability is Osteogenisis Imperfecta. So for people who don't know what that means, that's basically brittle bones disease. So over the period of my life, I've had over 300 breaks through my body. I was actually born with both my arms, both my legs, a couple of rib fractures as well, and a skull fracture from birth. And it sort of set the tone from there. I've had loads of arm and leg fractures. I'm sort of the bulk of the 300 and odd fractures that I've had. Numerous surgeries. I've had metal rods put into my femurs and tibias on both legs, basically helping the healing times for my fractures and stopping them, just making them hairline fractures and nothing more. So cuts the time in the cast down quite significantly there. And yeah, lots of hospital visits, experimental drug trials and stuff, and lots of physiotherapy over the years through growing up.
So it's been predominantly your like limbs that have suffered the most of the breaks.
Yeah. Done a few ribs growing up, a few fingers when I started playing sport, but mainly arms and legs. Yeah.
Wow.
So that sort of, as I've grown, that's then turned into restrictions within my arms. It's probably quite hard to see on the screen now, but I've got quite a significant like arm curvatures, elbow restrictions, shoulder restrictions, limited spine movement. So I've got very limited core function. Can't really weight bear on my legs. Fractured both of my hip sockets, ball socket joints. So that then affects the way my hips turn and move. And same with my legs and my knees and my ankles as well.
So you use a wheelchair, don't you, for most part?
Yes, I'm a full-time wheelchair user.
So are you able to walk at all, or is that something that's sort of, no, not at all?
When I was very young, I was able to weight bear, and I used a walking frame very, very limitedly under physiotherapy guidance. But after I had the surgery for the rods, it became impossible for me to stand and walk. Wow.
It's got to be tough. So what was some of the things that mainly caused the breaks then? Would it have had to been a fall, or could it have been literally,
it could have been
bumped?
It was like, best way to explain it is like you're sort of a origami sort of little figurine sort of thing, where you're so delicate at such a young age, and simple things like my mum changing my clothes would result in a fracture.
Wow.
Very, very delicate things like that. Even though my mum was obviously very careful trying to do it, the smallest little thing would have caused a fracture back then.
Jeez. And that's got to be quite tough, especially for your mum. I guess she was extremely cautious.
It affects, I think, any parent of someone with OI, it takes a lot of understanding and a lot of patience and a lot of mental strength for them to sort of raise a child with this sort of disability, I find. But yeah, my mum worked really hard and did an awesome job, really, I think, under the circumstances. But back then as well, the knowledge and the medical advice that was available was very limited. So and
not even that, I think more so the support and the community behind it as well, because obviously going back a few years, there wasn't obviously the internet, or there was the internet, but it wasn't the sort of resources that maybe available.
So yeah, there wasn't really much available. I quite lucky that my doctor, it wasn't really a specialist, but the consultant that I was under at Wigan Hospital, He was, I remember the name for the life of me, but he was golfing buddies with someone who was studying and specialising in rare bone disease. And he then into specialising in brittle bone disease and that. So through the consultant that I had, he then put me through the channels of the specialist, and I went from being under a Wigan consultant to also being under a specialist at Sheffield Children's Hospital. There's only, a bit of luck in there, and the right golfing buddies along the way, and they looked after me and got me some top quality treatment as I was growing up. Wow.
So what did you find with your condition? Did it progress, or did you find it got better as you was getting older, like in regards to your bones were getting stronger, especially as you was developing?
Yeah, so from a very young age up until probably 12 years old, I had to be very, not just me, well, not me per se, but people around me had to be very careful of what I was doing, because any sort of impact or fall or sudden sort of thing to my skeleton could have caused a fracture. And you know what kids are like growing up? They like to run around, cause trouble, jumping up things, climbing up things they shouldn't. You know what I mean? And it's natural. I'm a child with brittle bones is gonna have a fracture. And the prevailing sort of answer to that is to wrap them in cotton wool. So there was a lot of fractures and there was a lot of protection there. But as I got older, it became less and less frequent, and it became a battle for me to sort of prove to my teachers, my mum, my family, people around me that I'm okay doing these things. And there was a treatment and had the surgeries. I was getting stronger, and the treatment was helping increase my bone strength, and I was able to do more and more and more.
Wow.
So I was around 18 years old, to be honest. That was when I came to a point where I was like, my bone density is on a level of someone my age and height.
So how did you find it in yourself with or growing up with that? Was you very hesitant to like take part in sports, or was you more, you just wanted to behave as like a normal child and run around like all the other kids? And
for me, it was the norm. I think you look at someone like myself, born with a disability. I didn't do any different. I grew up, this is a normal childhood, a normal upbringing. These that I face are normal challenges for any kid. And ignorance is bliss, really, because you just don't know what other people are living like, and you just want to have fun. And it was just normal for me. I just wanted to run around, play, have fun, and make friends, and join in with the other kids. I think I do remember instances, because I went to a special needs school, Miro school, for 12 years. I do remember instances where the teachers were reluctant for me to take part in certain physical activities. And I remember sort of being the little rebel that I was, like, no, I can do that. I want to join in, and sort of really push in to join in with other disabled kids in a PE environment. Looking back on it, I find it quite funny that, I was at a special needs school, and even with having a special need myself, I was not segregated, I think that's a strong word, but I was sort of held away from sport a little bit for the fear of fracturing. And
that was by others, not necessarily yourself, do you think?
Yeah, but I understand the reasons why, and I would totally have done the same thing in their position. But I think to sort of see the journey I've later gone on in sport, I find it quite a funny start, a funny beginning.
Yeah, I think, well, for yourself as a coach, like when we're running classes, someone will come in, and whether that's an injury, it could be a very like surface level injury, or it could be something a lot deeper. You have to adjust the movements, etc., for that individual, and the same for yourself. And maybe because of the lack of knowledge with the PE teachers of how to handle it, maybe they couldn't necessarily think of how to adapt it, and it was a case of like, rather than doing an alternative version, just don't take part at all, because we don't want to be responsible for your injuries and for you to get hurt.
Yeah, I think it's worth saying though as well. It wasn't like all physical activity. It was like certain, like
maybe more contact sort of.
Yeah. But yeah, like I was saying, went to special needs school for 12 years, and then I progressed over to a mainstream education for my last 3 years. And at that point, there was a lot of pioneering went on then, because it was at a time when the government was looking to have more inclusivity in their education and not have special needs schools, SEN schools, and able-bodied schools, people with no disabilities, having two separate. They wanted to bring them both together. So I was a part of some of the first few people to make that merge into one school. And when that happened, there was a great PE teacher that I had at the time. I think his name was Mr. Turley, remember rightly, and he was brilliant. He was when we started, they went on a lot of courses about teaching PE to kids with special needs and that, and they were taught very much how to encourage them to get involved and feed them along and keep them positive and just make them feel included. They didn't expect someone like myself coming, bashing the doors open. Right, what we're playing here? What we're doing? Come on, let's go. Just was getting stuck in with everyone. And I remember him saying, as I left school in year 11, it's like, when you came in that first day, I weren't expecting that sort of attitude from someone with a disability. And then I was like, right, I need to forget everything I learned on these courses. I need to think, right, how can I get Daniel involved? How can how can he join in the football, in the rugby, the badminton, tennis, squash, whatever sport they were doing at school? I wanted to join in with them. So he had to then quickly switch it up and think, right, it's not about just encouraging them to do anything. It's about getting them to do everything with everyone else.
Yeah.
And I was adamant straight off the bat when I learned about GCSEs, because at SEN school, I didn't know anything about GCSEs. And I was like, I want to do a GCSE in PE. I want to have a qualification for physical education. And at the time, there was no criteria for someone with a disability to go and do PE and get a qualification in it. So he had to go to the local PCSE board, I think it's called OCR back then, and put forward a means of assessing someone with a disability, because it was me and two other lads in my year group, and we were all keen on sport. And he was Mr. Turley was a massive push to get that put through. And without him, I wouldn't have been able to have a PE qualification at school. And yeah, it was we're probably only going back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, probably actually. And, there was nothing really specific for a disabled person in a wheelchair to do a GCSE.
Because that's the thing, if you've got that sort of that format of already how to assess people within like a PE GCSE, like you've got to create almost like a new way of assessing, because you're not going to be able to do some of the things exactly the same as their requirements. So it's like, he can't do that. Does that mean he fails? No, but he can do it like this. So does that mean he passes? So,
if I remember rightly, and I'm going back a long time, like I said, but there was an element of high jump and a long jump.
Okay.
I'm not doing a high jump and a long jump, So it's like, right, forget them, scrap them off, forget them. Let's do something adaptive. Okay, so I believe we did like 100-meter push race sort of thing. We did table tennis, badminton. We did some rugby stuff, I think, and then we did tabletop cricket. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No, I haven't. No.
So it's a adaptive sport made by the Lord Taverners Association to get people involved in cricket, and we were really big on that back then. And they managed to get that put into the criteria for the GCSE assessment. So we were very lucky. We went to Old Trafford and played tabletop cricket there. Went down to Lords and played it there. Represented the team there.
I've literally just wrote it down, by the way. I'm going to go and research this straight away.
Yeah, no, it's a really good sport. It was created by a guy up in the northwest. I can't remember his name. Doug Williams, I think. From like the northwest area, and he created this sport for people to get involved in cricket. And the Lord Tavern took it on and made it into a national competition. And then from that, I do believe it is still going, but it's because it's become a national competition, and people with high levels of disability like cerebral palsy, all the way to like any sort of coordination disability and wheelchair users play this sport.
Cool.
Yeah, we went for 7 years playing it down the Lords. I think I got selected for England to represent the England team in that about 4 or 5 years in a row. So it was, it was a very young age, very limited opportunity. It was a good opener into sport.
And especially competitive sport as well, I guess, because it's learning that you can sort of take part in certain sports, but if you want to play like a proper competitive team sport as well, that would be a great sort of like a stepping stone almost. Yeah.
And from that, like it builds people, the social aspect of sport, the competitive element of sport, and I think it's just sort of that confidence to put yourself out there and take part.
Yeah, I think that's super important as well. Like with sports and the competitive side, the social side as well. You're building that community of people that enjoy one thing, and it's you're making friends throughout, and you're meeting other people maybe in similar situations to yourself, and it's sort of like, oh wow, okay, I'm not just in this alone. Like there's other people like me, or if not like similar, that I can sort of learn from, and they can potentially learn from me as well.
And I remember it was very much it was made into like a big trip, because being in Wigan, it was like a 4-hour drive down to London. So we used to get a minibus, drive down the day before, stop over at Stoke Mandeville, and like have a night there, and then we'd go from there into London. And
so it's like a proper event. You'd go out, you'd have like food and drinks maybe, and then you'd go.
We have our own team kit and that, and you socialise. If you grow up watching Manchester United and Wigan Warriors or whatever sports team you follow, you aspire to be like them and to be like Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, LeBron James. For a disabled person, them, especially back then, them role models weren't there. So to have something similar where you could be like, well, I'm like Cristiano Ronaldo, maybe going off in our team coach.
Well, if there's nothing else like that, then you're almost that role model. If people are going to follow you and watch you do it, then you're the first of them role models.
And we felt like we're going to go down on a team coach, we're going to play these teams, we're going to win, we're going to give it our best shot. And and we was only probably the youngest of us was like 8 or 9, up until I think the age limit was about 16. So for that young age, it's when sport has its massive impact on your life, and it leaves that impression for you. And to have that as a starting basis definitely set the tone for myself going on into my sporting career and my coaching career. I've sort of digressed a little bit, but
no.
That sport was able to be put into GCSE criteria to be assessed for myself to go and get a GCSE. That was sort of a big thing for me back then, way back then. From there I went on to Wigan and Leigh College, studied a national diploma in sport coaching. At that point I was set that I want to be involved in sport.
That was it. Your mind was made up.
This was my journey, but at that age I knew I felt I couldn't take part in sport and have a meaningful sporting career at that time. So I wanted to go down the coaching route and be the man behind the team. Bring these groups of people together and set them off to success. That was my aspiration, to be like Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp sort of person. You know, them were my role models.
Yeah.
Then it was more Sir Alex Ferguson back then, not Pep Guardiola. But yeah. So yeah, Brenton did a diploma in sports coaching. Did 3 years, I think. I think 2-3 years to get that. I'm going to go 2 years. 2 years. Sorry, 2 years to do that, and then the opportunity to do a degree in sports coaching at UCLan University became an option. I think very much with me, I never had like a goal at the start where I was like coming from school and I was like, right, I want to go to university and do this. I never really thought
was university never really something that you had in your vision or in your sights at that time? Okay. Go on, sorry.
I kept it very much the next step at a time. Never thought about uni, never even crossed my mind in the slightest. But I wanted to get the next qualification and then see what was available. You know, once I got that, what's the next step along the journey? What's happening next?
So how did you find that transition between going from school? Because obviously in school, they created these ways of assessing you. And obviously to be able to give you the qualifications, did they have the similar sort of systems in place at college and at university?
I think, again, I was very lucky at college because I had some really great people teaching me, mentoring me, and very open-minded people as well. They weren't regimented to the criteria for assessments that they had. And they were very much having an open dialogue with me about what I wanted to do and how I felt it was best to push forward. I already had some coaching experience going into college, so I felt like I was a step ahead of my peers at the time. I had a bit more confidence in what I was doing. It was very much the academical side of things where I found a challenge at the time, and sort of just learning to, plan. You plan. What's it called now? I can never remember the three things. You've done it for that long. Plan, deliver, review. The three, the three pillars of coaching, and that was sort of the more learning about that side of things, improving my planning skills, improving my review skills and my feedback skills. Was very much where I was rooted at college. Delivery, I basically told the tutors, I can do it. Let me do it my way. It's going to look a little different. It's going to be a little unorthodox, but I can promise you I can get the same results as John or Bob, who else delivering. But yeah, they were very open-minded and very. I think they enjoy it just as much as me, in a sense.
Very accommodating.
Yeah,
and I think that's the beauty of sports as well, and especially coaching or personal training. We can be very open-minded, and we are problem solvers. Because someone will come into you with a problem, and you've got to solve it. Like they would say, right, whether it's weight loss, whether it's they want to get faster, whether it's want to get better at a sport, then you've got to look at that person, and everyone's on an individual basis, and you've got to say, right, how are we going to address this? What do you need to work on here, and then what do we need to work on here? What do we need to work on here? And I think that maybe would have helped. Maybe if it was a different subject that you went into, they might not have had that same level of open-mindedness.
I agree. I definitely would agree. I think definitely though with sport as well, we put ourselves so much more out there physically. So you open that door to be critiqued for your physical performance. You whether your movement around the group, your body language, your setting up the equipment, things like that. It's going to be a challenge for someone in a wheelchair with a disability, but there's ways around it. And if the assessors are understanding that things are going to look a little different, then for me, there's not really a barrier there. Then in that sense, so job like being an IT technician, you are very much sat there typing away. So physically, there's not the same demands on you. Whereas obviously different disabilities, obviously then comes different demands. But very much, I think, in a sports industry, you're looking more at the physical side.
So what would your advice be for someone, say someone is in a wheelchair and maybe thinks they can't get into coaching because of potentially, like, as you just said, setting up equipment, demonstrating certain movements? What would your advice be to them, and how have you yourself adapted this? Is that a tough question?
I think very much some of it's got to be like your mindset.
Yeah.
Like you're that sort of person that's not going to let a challenge deter you. Then I think you've got to sort of throw yourself a bit in the deep end in that sense. Then give it a go, fail, because you will fail. There will be times where you will make mistakes, you will struggle at stuff, but understand the lessons to be learned from that. And then come away, review what you've done. How can I do it better next time? I think for someone who is wanting to be involved in it and to do it, but is lacking that self-confidence, I think very much slowly, do one thing at a time, practice setting up equipment, have a dummy run. If you're doing a fitness class, a circuit class, you're going to be using barbells, kettlebells, any sort of equipment. Practice setting it up. Set up the equipment as if you was going to do that class. Put it there, put it in place. Time how long it takes to set it up. Get an understanding for how long it takes you to do something. Then next time, think, right, I struggled setting up that barbell because of this and this. Maybe like you had the clips, you put the plates on and you clip it on. Maybe you struggle with the clips. Maybe you need a different type of clip that sort of, you flip open and it slides on and off a little bit easier. Understand that. Get them type of clips that you need. If struggling to move the weight of kettlebells into position, is there someone around that can help you? Is there another personal trainer in your venue? Is there another coach that you're working with? Have you got an assistant coach? Can they do some of the donkey work for you? Using what's around you, understanding you don't, as a coach, you don't have to do all the physical work yourself. You can use people, but plan.
And I think that's the same, regardless whether you're in a wheelchair. Like, I think planning is key. We plan our sessions ahead. We plan I know I always turn up at least minimum 20 minutes early to a class for that particular reason, because if you come in and someone's left it a bit of a mess the night before and you're like, oh my god, I've got to clean all this up, and I would, and it wouldn't necessarily be viable, like especially if you're doing like an S&C class, to get everyone's barbells out. So you do your whiteboard talk at the start. You'll say, right, this is what the session is. This is how it's running. Right, guys, grab yourself X, Y, Z and get your station set up. And I think especially like during COVID, it's been a little bit of a godsend for a lot of PTs, because a lot of the equipment's getting cleaned as you go. Although people were still cleaning, not to the level they're doing now, because after every session, it's like, wipe down your equipment, clean up the plates, clean up the barbells, etc. And yeah, you're right. It's planning. It's key. Planning.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And contingency planning as well. Because if things go wrong and you can't do something, understanding, right, I can get this exercise done instead. I can do something else. I can use another piece of equipment, and I think that way then you stop yourself from being flustered, and you've always got that backup plan in place.
Yeah, it's that experience. Now, I've definitely been there a few times in my early in my career, where you've gone into a session, you've gone, right, I've got my session planned out to a T, this is going to be perfect. And then you get to the session, and then something like, I don't know, maybe there's an extra person turns up, or I don't know, you're outside and it's raining. Oh my god, like, what do I do? Like, I've planned this session for no rain, it's raining. God. Yeah. And so always having that little contingency plan definitely helps 100%.
It's just one of them, like, if anyone watching this is wanting to get involved in coaching, there's so many people that are successful with a disability that's doing it at a high level. You've got the Paralympics coming up in the next week or two. There's going to be so many disabled coaches. They're just, everyone focuses on the athletes, but the coaches are quite often disabled as well.
Yeah.
So, look at that side of things. Look at what, how are they doing? Are they using any sort of special piece of equipment towards things? Are they they have a whiteboard, so they're not having to demonstrate. Sorry, hang on a minute.
No, that's all right.
But yeah, there's a pathway for everyone, and there's not a one size fits all approach for everyone. So just keep that open mind, and use your environment to the best of your abilities. Whether you know people, if you know another coach who's doing it as well, reach out to them. I'm sure they'll be very much wanting to help further along another coach.
Yeah, and I'd imagine you've been a massive inspiration to a lot of other guys out there. So I've got a young lad. Go on, sorry.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah. I've got a young lad I work with at the moment, and he's got a CP, and he's in a wheelchair as well. And one of the things he wants to do is he wants to become a coach, but he's very cautious.
Thank you. Yeah,
he's very cautious and a little bit nervous that how is he going to do this? So I think definitely after this, I'm going to send this straight to him and say, watch this video. This guy will inspire you, because he's done it. He's just proved everybody wrong.
I'm sure if you do podcasts, you're probably going to hear a similar thing. But for me, I don't aim to go out and inspire someone. I go out and be the best version of me tomorrow. And if I can get someone to think, wow, if he can do that, I can do it. And that's brilliant. That makes me feel better about myself. And,
because you're doing this because you love the industry.
Yeah, but it's a thankful circle where I'm doing something I love, and then that helps someone else feel better because they're seeing me do it, and then I feel even better about myself because then I'm seeing them do it, because it just feeds into you and it pushes you on so much.
100%. I completely agree with that. And this is one of the reasons I love what I do. It is you see the best in people in this industry, and I don't think I've ever had someone come through my doors and not be in a good mood to be in the gym. It's like, right, I'm in the gym, I'm ready to train. And as you said, like you train that person, they go away happy, and maybe you put a video up of them training, and then someone else sees that and they're inspired by it, and it's just, as you said, that knock-on effect. And although you don't necessarily go, right, I want to be an inspiration, I want to be a motivational speaker or anything like that, you inadvertently do because of the work you do.
Definitely.
Definitely. So for yourself, you coach, do you predominantly coach people with disabilities, or do you coach able-bodied, or is it a mixture?
It's anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
So
because I follow you on Instagram, and obviously I've seen some of your sessions and they look awesome, man. Like I definitely reckon you could put us through my paces.
Yeah, I try my best. I very much have the mantra of I'll train someone the way I train myself.
Yeah.
So I'm going to push you hard. I'm going to expect a lot from you, but then in return you're going to get a lot out of that. I'd say probably 80% of my clientele are disabled in some way. At the minute, the majority of that are people out of the sport of wheelchair rugby. So that's where my background is, in wheelchair rugby, from competing as an athlete. I've made that progression as a coach, and now as more of an S&C trainer in that. And then I've got a couple of people who are just sort of wanting to become more independent through their disability. Got a young lad with CP who's wanting to get better at his transferring in out of his day chair. Just be more confident if he needs to get out of his wheelchair. If he falls out of his wheelchair on a day out, how to get back into his wheelchair safely if there's no one around. So very much health and safety sort of spin on that.
Like more functional, or like for someone's day-to-day living, rather than necessarily sport specific.
Yeah, definitely. He does also play sport as well. He plays wheelchair football.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at doing some things towards that and helping his coordination and his reaction times. So going to get a little bit more sport specific as we go along and down the road, but very much starting off with that independence and that functional based training.
That's cool. That's really cool.
And then I coach a couple of able-bodied people, helping them with weight loss, and then here where I train the PT studio, I help out on the evening classes. So we do classes. We do probably shared some things. I don't know if you've seen them online, but we have like the 8-week challenges, the 10-week body transformation challenges, and that. And we run evening classes for that. So I help out on some of the circuit-based classes in the evenings and running some of them.
Cool.
And again, that's a full able-bodied clientele that are attending them classes.
So how do you feel, especially like, as you said with this class here, how do people normally perceive you when they're coming into the class and they go, oh, this is your coach for today? What sort of
I think this gym is a very special gym in the sense of we get anyone and everyone wanting to come and work on themselves, and it's very much a community-based environment here. I think me being a disabled coach probably fits the criteria of this gym perfectly, because there's no sort of pre-existing opinions or barriers for me to come and coach them. They're confident with anyone coaching them of any shape or size, and they know that they're going to get quality coaching. I think it's that understanding of everybody looks different. And I think with myself being short statured, so I'm 3'7". I was, like I said, wheelchair user as well. It probably helps some of them feel at ease about their bodies a little bit as well.
Yeah, because it can be quite intimidating going to a coach, and especially if they're like, I know I've seen coaches, and I'm quite tall myself. I'm 6'5", and seeing someone that's maybe taller than me, like, you know, massive, and you're sort of looking, you're like, oh, this is a bit intimidating, and it can put a lot of people off of even stepping into a gym.
Yeah.
And like bodybuilding gyms, like big guys walking around, you know.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it just helps people feel at ease, isn't that? You know, everyone's welcoming, everyone's dead nice.
Yeah.
I like to think I'm the exact same, and probably the first week or so, people are like, oh, who's this person? Yeah, this new coach coming in here. But I think it's like anyone, if someone's new there, they're a bit, you know, like, who are they? What are they about? Get to know them. Oh, they're nice, they're really lovely, you know. And once you sort of over that introduction with people, it's like anyone else, really. I think people forget the wheelchair, people forget disability, and it's just, oh, it's Danny.
Yeah, and it's because I can clearly hear by the way you're talking, you're very passionate about it, and people do feed off on that. They hear you're passionate about what you do, and you genuinely care about the people you coach. Yeah,
you know, sports been my life for the last 15 years. So it's the journey's took a different route than I've expected, to be honest. But I've always done stuff I've enjoyed. I'd never do something. If I woke up tomorrow and I didn't enjoy doing this anymore, I wouldn't do it. Simple as that. Because then my all wouldn't be in it.
That's it. And I've always said to people, if you get into this industry for any other reason other than, if you're getting into this industry for the money, it's not gonna be there. But if you get into it for the passion, like you'll be a successful coach.
Yeah, you will, definitely. And helping other people ultimately, you know. If someone's coming through this door and the heaviest they've ever been, or if once they're struggling with the confidence, with the disability, if they're wanting, you know, to go and progress and compete internationally in a certain sport, if they come in wanting that goal, I'm going to give my all to them and be like, right, we're going to get you there. And if they then make it and they lose that way, they getting selected for that team, or, you know, do whatever, then I'm winning out of that, because I want to see them there. I want to see them succeeding just as much as them for themselves.
It's your work, and take pride in your work. And if your work is getting that result, and that person, like, ultimately you've improved their quality of life, or whether they've made it onto the team, etc. Like you've that's it. That's what you're in this for. Yeah. And if you've achieved that, then that's it.
Yeah,
it's amazing. So obviously you mentioned about with where you was growing up and the different sports you was playing. So in regards to your own training now, so within maybe a gym environment, how have you adapted that personally for yourself, your own training?
So it's very much an outside the box thinking. I'm sort of looking at what I'm trying to get out of my training. I'm very good. I've got an awesome gym partner in Steve Barlow, the guy who owns this place. we work really hard on. He's sat over there, he's listening in. We work really hard on what the end result is going to be. So if I'm wanting to increase my power, my strength, then we're going to create a program that's going to work on that. And same for endurance, flexibility, mobility, and that. So I'm sort of looking at them end components and thinking, right, okay, how can I get there? What challenges are in my way? So I'll give you one example of triceps. Mm-hmm. So with my shoulder restriction, my elbow restriction, I have very limited tricep movement with my arm. I can only lift my arm that high above my head. So doing a tricep extension is near impossible for me. So it's like, right, understanding. You okay, buddy? You're back again. You've got the food here this time, though. You okay? You saying hello? So it's looking at how can I get that tricep movement in? But I can't make my head to do that.
And if you can't get that full extension.
Yes. So we played around with a few things. A lot of trial and error, like I mentioned before, in the coaching aspect. But we trial and error with a lot of things, and we decided, right, we're going to use a lot of gravity-based stuff, using a band. Gets that movement as near to perfect as possible, with that restriction being taken into account, and we're getting as much muscle activation with that movement as possible as well. And it probably took us a couple of months just trying different things, but it was that idea of not getting discouraged and just being really creative in what we're doing.
And I think for me, that's one of the most rewarding parts of working with individuals with disabilities, and it's like a puzzle, because everyone's case is slightly different, and it's that trial and error. So it's not like you find one system that works for all. It's you have a sort of a template, but that template is going to change drastically between clients. And that's one thing that keeps me engaged and so driven in working with individuals with disabilities.
Definitely, 100%. I think, sorry about that.
It's okay.
I think you've got to be happy to be out of your comfort zone in this, and like what you just said then about trying these different things. It's taking you out of your comfort zone as a coach, as a PT, and you're not gonna have the answers ultimately. And I think that's probably a really frightening thing to say as a coach and as a PT. Naturally we want to have the answers when someone comes up to us with any sort of question. We want to be able to say, oh yeah, do this, yeah, do that. But to say, I don't know, let's try this, let's do this, see what happens. It's a scary thing.
I think people respect you more so for that. If someone was to come up to you and say, look, this is what I want to do, and you don't know the answer, like for you to turn around and go, oh my God, I've never heard of that, or I don't really know what to do in that situation. Give me a couple of days, give me a number, I'll come back to you and we'll figure this out. Or have you got 10 minutes? Let's go and have a chat. Let's have a little play around, see if we can figure this out. And definitely people will really respond well to that. Yeah.
And this is what it's all about for me. Whenever I get someone new working with me, I will say to them, listen, the first month, we're going to be trying a lot of things. We're going to learn about what you can do, what you can't do. I know we can have conversations about it, but there's also these physical things where you might be able to do things you don't realize you can do. There might be things happening with your body physiologically that you're compensating for, that then is getting the same movement in. So we need to understand what's your body doing, why are they doing it, and then understanding, okay, we're going to isolate this, and this, then we can get this movement in, then we're working on this muscle group. So very much that first month or so is just that, just learning about the person, understanding them, because I could have 3 people with cerebral palsy. All 3 can be completely different. So you need to understand as a coach, as a PT, that disability, just because you're getting someone, when they ring you up and say, yeah, I've got such a disability, can you train me? Yeah, great. But then when they come through the door, you got to understand, right, although they've got the same disability that I've worked with a million times before, they will be different than a million people that come in the past. And again, that first month, learning them as an individual physically and, you know, emotionally, you know, learning what they like, what they don't like, and I would talk about it physically as well.
And what sort of barriers do you think you've came up with? Some of the biggest barriers in regards to that sort of training?
Me training myself?
No, with others, with
others.
Yeah.
You know what? I've probably never really faced that challenge yet. Because
like, have you had someone come through the door and you've gone, I don't know if I can work with you?
No, not yet. I'm very much. It's hard because I think to answer honestly, I put myself across on social media as quite an outgoing person and quite a bubbly, fun guy. Hopefully. So I think I attract them sort of people.
Yeah.
First and foremost. I think secondly, if you're gonna come to a gym environment, you're gonna want to. You're already putting yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit just to come, turn up. So I think once you're sort of there, I think anything else is a little bit easier. You know, doing any movements, any exercises becomes a little bit easier. Getting you through the door is probably the hardest bit, I'd find. I've had people, I'm sure you've had many people that have contacted you, wanted a consultation, excuse me, and then not turned up. You know, straight off the bat, then that answers my question: that are they committed? Do they really want to do this? Are they wanting to better themselves? Yes or no? You know, we want to help everyone we can, but if they're not going to turn up, what can we do, really?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you can only do so much as a coach. You've got to, that individual's got to want to apply themselves. Yeah.
You know, don't get me wrong. I've had people turn up that had bad days and feeling a bit lethargic and not motivated. But once you sort of get them going, you find that they forget about the day-to-day troubles and what's going on at home and that, and you know, they become more invested in getting that sweat on when they're here.
Yeah. So, you at the moment you play wheelchair rugby.
Yes.
How are you finding that? Because the first guy I had on the podcast, Josh, you play with him.
Yeah. So me and Josh, we started playing around the same time actually.
Cool.
In a month of one another, and we've developed through the pathway together. Play at the same club team. We went up into the GBW talent pathway together and developed through all that. Then Josh obviously had a bit of time out, and I carried on playing. But yeah, I've been playing with Josh. You know, probably coming up to 10 years.
Wow, a long while.
Yeah,
so how have you found that yourself?
Quite a few trips away together as well, and that, and quite a bit, and probably some things I can't really mention on the podcast, but a few funny stories. But yeah, that's some good times together.
Oh, awesome.
So
is that a weekly thing you guys do together? Do you train weekly? Do you train? Is it a?
So our club team, West Coast Wheelchair Rugby Club, we train once a week at the minute in Leyland due to COVID. We're based in Southport normally, but because of COVID restrictions at the hospital, we can't train there anymore. So we're currently in Leyland. We do one session there, and then I put on group PT sessions for a lot of the lads at the training club. They come to me, probably get the majority of the club if they come down and train with me. Do a couple of hours here.
So how have you found playing wheelchair rugby yourself? Obviously, with having brittle bones, rugby is a contact sport. So how have you personally found that?
To start with, it was completely unexpected. I never expected to play wheelchair rugby. It was never something I planned on. Like I mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast, I never saw myself as an athlete. And I always had that vision of me being a coach and going down that avenue. And I sort of took a bit of a leap of faith, went to wheelchair basketball. My coach from there put me on to wheelchair rugby because I felt qualified for that. And I just never expected I'd be playing the only full contact disability sport in the Paralympics, you know. At the time, there was two other lads playing the sport with my disability. One lad in Ireland and one lad in Germany. So very good players, and they were playing internationally at the time. So when I started playing, the coach I had at my club team, who is now the GB coach, very much had that sort of a model in mind. I think for me, sort of, if they can play, why can't you play at that level? But yeah, I very much took it one step at a time. Wasn't committed to it to start with. I was very much like, I'll come and train. I'll give it a go. I'll do a couple of months. See what happens. Play my first like friendly tournament. See how I find it, and then I'll see if it's for me or not. Got to that point. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. But it wasn't the physical contact element that I fell in love with, really. I do enjoy it, but it was more the tactical side of things that really sparked my interest. Because I don't know if you've watched it being played, seen some videos on YouTube, but
yeah.
on it's a very hard-hitting, very fast-paced, adrenaline-filled sport. Underneath all that, there's a lot of different tactics going on, a lot of plays, a lot of...
I would imagine even more so tactical than like rugby, like itself, because you can't move necessarily the same way as a rugby player would move, because you've got like with your chair, you would have to make adjustments to go in different directions.
On the face of it, it's called wheelchair rugby.
Yeah,
it takes elements of rugby. However, it takes a lot more elements of a lot of different sports. American football, handball, basketball. It's all of these sports then amalgamated into what it is.
Yeah.
I like to compare it more so to American football for the tactic element. You watch American football, they have all these set plays, these set patterns to break a defense down, and vice versa, set defenses to counteract these patterns. And that is what our sport is. We have set movements, set plays that we use that plays towards people's disabilities and their abilities within their chairs and their roles to then get the end result of scoring a try. So there's a lot of what ifs. So if this guy does this thing, I need to know, I need to do this. If this guy then does that over there, I need to understand, I need to counteract that by doing this. And it's an hour and 10 minutes a match of that happening constantly. So I fell in love with that, really, and completely immersed myself in learning the tactics and the technical aspects of the game. I started off playing at West Coast Wheelchair Rugby. We have two teams in our club, West Coast Burn, our development squad, and West Coast Crash, our elite team. Started off in the Burn team, developed, learned the sport, progressed up into Crash. As I progressed up into the Crash team, I got selected onto the GB talent pathway along with Josh. Spent 4 years a cycle. So after London 2012, this was. So in the build to Rio 2016, was in the talent pathway. Then after Rio came, I got selected for the GB elite squad in very dramatic fashion. At my selection camp, I decided to break my leg, which was fun. Luckily, I still got selected though, as I said. And then not long after, I got selected onto the squad for the European Championships. Unfortunately, then didn't make any other tournaments. However, I did get to win a gold medal at the Europeans in 2017, and highlighting my career. Been playing a lot of club rugby all around the country, all around the world. Played all over Europe and been very successful in a lot of that. But yeah, I've had a very good, very successful rugby career so far, and one I'm very proud of, to be honest. And had some. It
sounds like you've achieved a lot. It sounds like you've achieved a lot in quite a short period of time.
I'm always wanting to achieve more. I'm never happy with what I've done is great, and I'm proud of it. But I want more. I'm very greedy. I'm very selfish. I want more.
So what is your vision? What is your dream, your ambition? What do you see yourself for the future?
As an athlete?
I would say as both. An athlete, a coach. As
an athlete, I want to keep doing what I'm doing. Keep playing as many tournaments as I can, wherever I can, and win as much as I can. Very simple, like that. I just want to win. I love winning. in terms of as an athlete, so in terms of a coach, I want to see people do what I'm doing. Whether if I'm coaching a lot of people in wheelchair rugby right now, I want to see them progress up into the GB elite team.
Yeah.
I want to see them go on to a Paralympics to win a medal for Great Britain. For people who are wanting to become more independent with a disability, I want to see them reach them goals. You know, whoever I'm working with, I want to see them reach them goals and become the best version of themselves ultimately, and help me become better as well, because I'm still learning as a coach, as a PT. You know, we're always learning in this sort of industry.
The industry is constantly changing.
Yeah, so I want them to help me become better at this as well, and I just want to keep going, really. You know, keep enjoying it. I've not really got sort of an end goal in mind with this. I'm still this environment, this PTing. I've been doing it since the start of the year, so I'm still quite new to this environment. But I want to take it as far as I can take it.
Just help as many people as possible. Yeah. Grow yourself as a coach and learn. And I can definitely. For myself with that, I'm always learning. Like you, I don't think you can ever, like we said before, like if someone comes up to you and says, "I've got this issue," you don't know the answer. What are you going to do? You write it down. You go away. You research the heck out of that. I know if I've ever come up to any situation, that next morning I've already downloaded a podcast on it, or I've already found something. When I'm out with the dogs, I'm listening to that podcast. I'm like, okay, I need to know everything about this.
The one thing I've hated with lockdown is the fact that we've not been able to travel as much and do as much in the car, to go to tournaments, to go to training sessions, purely because I used to love just sticking a podcast on, having an hour and a half drive, and then just sitting and listening to something, learning about something, and that was sort of taken away. Now things are opening back up and we're back training and that, you know, doing a lot of catch up over the last year or two.
I can agree with that one. Yeah, that's one of my favourite things to do. Is if I've got a long drive, just podcast on. Let's go. Just get some knowledge.
Yeah.
Cool. So,
it's just constant. I think, like you said, you know, if I wake up tomorrow and I've got the attitude that I know everything and no one can tell me how to do this better than the way I'm doing it, then, you know, you're done in the industry. You know, you've got to understand.
You've got to be humble. You've got to be humble.
You've got to be humble, but every day is a school day.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. So what would you say for yourself? What inspires you? What keeps you going?
I mean, when you sent me this question, I looked and I was like, wait a minute. Here we go.
Because there could be a number of things.
Yeah. I think that question can look so different to so many people. I'll start off with, I'll change it a little bit to start off with. So I'll say who inspires me. So people who know me know I'm a massive basketball fan. As an athlete, Kobe Bryant is probably the pinnacle of motivation and determination and commitment. You know, the way he sort of applied himself to basketball to be arguably one of the best basketball players to ever play the sport. You know, day in, day out, you know, you see a lot of these motivational videos of himself on YouTube. The Mamba mentality, he talks a lot about, you know, he personifies that sort of commitment to a craft. I still do take a lot of motivation and inspiration from himself. And then when he stopped playing basketball before his tragic death, he went on to coaching his daughter's basketball team and setting up the Mamba Academy, I believe it was called, for basketball, for women in basketball. And, you know, he was helping inspire female basketballers to, you know, become the best that they can and further female basketball as a sport. And, you know, as a coach, he was doing some great things and inspiring others. And, you know, that's something I'm trying to do now, help inspire others, help push others to, be the best athletes that they can be. So yeah, Kobe Bryant's definitely the person that, I try and sort of model myself on. But what inspires me on a day-to-day basis? I think it's probably the fear of failure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like losing. I don't like losing. As an athlete, I want to win, and I'll be pissed if I lose. Ultimately, and I'll go away. I'll train twice as hard, and I will come back stronger. And the same as a coach, I want to get that person over that line, and if they can't hit their goal, or they're struggling to get them last few pounds off the body, if they couldn't get that selection that time for that team, I'm taking the personal responsibility on that and thinking, could I have done something better for them? Could I have better prepared that person? Could I have planned my sessions a little different to help them do that? And very much sort of putting a personal responsibility on seeing them succeed. And if they win, I win. If they lose, I lose. And I think having that sort of attitude gets me going in the morning, gets my competitive juices flowing, because it turns everything then for me into a bit of a competition. I've got a goal to reach. I've got somewhere that needs to be got to. I've got a target in mind, and I'm going to get there. And I'm going to get there before anyone else gets there.
I love that attitude. That's a great attitude to have.
Yeah, it's definitely one of. I like to think it can come across as being cocky, as being arrogant, and I get that and I understand that. I think though, it's not. It's understanding. Say me and you are playing a game of tennis.
Mm-hmm.
I want to beat you.
You probably will. I'm absolutely rubbish at tennis, so you will definitely beat me.
There we go. We're psychologically in there already. But
go on, sorry.
I will do anything I can to beat you. Okay, not because I want to beat you, purely because I want to win. I want to be. I want to go win. I won that match. I don't care that it was against Craig or it was against John, Bill, Bob, Harry, whoever. But I want to be able to say I just won that. I'm not going to say who again.
It's not like a personal grudge. It's not like you want to humiliate the other person.
Yeah, no, and I would never do that. That would never be something I want to do. If I was going around slapping you 5 sets to love, and you weren't getting a single point in any set, then maybe okay, Daniel, you got to calm down a little bit here, mate. Give him a bit of a chance. A bit OTT. But as long as I get the win, you've enjoyed yourself, I'm happy as well. But ultimately, I just want to be able to give myself that target of winning. If I'm making you come away and feel bad about it, then I've lost as well in that sense. I've won, but I've lost, because that's not my goal. That's not what I want to do as a person. And having that moral fortitude and that sort of moral instinct of saying, there's a line here. We play close to the line. We play as close as we can to the line, but we don't cross it.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of sports and fitness and everything. It's we want each other to succeed. Now, I've been in workouts with like some of the coaches I work with at an S&C gym, and we will go into a workout like we want to destroy each other, like we want to beat each other. But as soon as that workout is over, we're all fist bumping, we're all high-fiving, we're like, oh, awesome work. Next time I'm gonna beat you on that one. And it is that really supportive network of people that want each other to succeed. And likewise with sports, we like people to play sports that you're not just, as you said, like to completely humiliate someone every time. Like you're not gonna, it's not, trying to think of the word. It's not going to be helpful for anyone. It's not going to be helpful for you.
What are you going to get out of it? I would ask yourself. You're humiliating someone. What are you going to get out of it? Nothing.
Probably a bad reputation.
Yeah, you're gonna get a bad reputation. You might feel good about yourself for about 5 minutes. But then what? You know, you're gonna go home, and you're probably not gonna have many friends. You're not gonna have the same social interactions as with other people, because you're gonna push people away if you're doing that. So you're just ultimately hurting yourself, I'd say.
Definitely. Yeah, I can agree with you 100%. And I think your values sit a lot with mine in regards to what inspires me. Not necessarily basketball. I've never really been a fan of basketball. Not saying it's not a great sport. It's a great sport, but the sort of underpinning values are still there, definitely.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of the sport. There's so much on offer these days, and with the with internet as well. It's so easily sourced, and you can find whether you watch Aussie rules football or lacrosse, trying to think of some of these lesser known sports in our country, gymnastics. There's so much. Like I don't know if you watched the Olympics the other week. Some of the BMXing and the skateboarding.
There's such a diverse type of sport that can be now within the Olympics.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, to be honest. Sitting there and watching these new sports, because you get a bit of an understanding and education on how these sports work and what's going on here.
It's a skill, like to go on a BMX or a skateboard or anything like that. It is a skill. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of time and practice.
An elite athlete in any sport, you have to be committed to it. And I think there's just that element of respect that comes along with that. Then that these guys have trained for the last 4 or 5 years to become an Olympian, to go to Tokyo to represent the country at a sport I've never seen before. But straight off the bat, because they're there, I respect them for that massively.
And that passion, that drive to turn up every day and to do it,
Yeah, and now as a spectator, I'm sat here watching your sport. Okay, put on a show for me. Show me why this sport's amazing. And like I was sat there, I was in awe of some of it. Like there's like a 13-year-old girl. Is it Sky Gray? I think her name was. That won the gold for GB. Was it bronze? Sorry, she won for GB.
I can't remember.
I think it was bronze. It was. Yeah, but 13 years old, going all the way across the world to win a medal for GB, brilliant. And it's flabbergasting some of the things that you can do in some of these sports and that. And like I said, I've never watched it before, never seen it before, but definitely respect it.
You loved it, yeah. And I think that's the beauty of like the Olympics, and especially coming up the Paralympics as well. And even with CrossFit, I don't know if you watch the CrossFit Games or watch the.
I never watched the CrossFit Games. No.
Yeah, get involved. Have a look at that. Some of the they do obviously do adaptive games as well. So within CrossFit, the adaptive athletes get just as much respect as the other athletes as well. They get all the same, like all the gear. They can turn up to their hotels and they've got like all these trainers and clothes and everything bought for them just equally. And I think I even preferred watching the adaptive athletes perform than over the sort of the standard individual games, because seeing a one-armed man do a rope climb, that's unreal. But just the speed that he was going up that rope, and I was thinking, hey, that is crazy. And like just and even doing like burpees, doing a burpee with one arm, like I was attempting it the other day just to get a bit of an idea and how that would be. And oh my goodness, very difficult.
I think, any adaptive lifting sport, powerlifting, CrossFit, adaptive CrossFit, and that, it's, like I said, I've never watched adaptive CrossFit myself, but from watching the powerlifting and the powerlifting, you see like how these guys do these things, and they lift some crazy weights. And I was chatting to a trainer down here the other day, and I was saying to him, I was like, you do realise, like pound for pound, these guys in the Paralympics lifting, bench pressing, however much weight, the pound for pound, the strongest people in the world. Pound for pound, they're probably lifting just as much as the likes of Eddie Hall does.
And the thing is, and with their programming as well, they have to, especially if someone has got like a limb missing or they've got a certain condition, which would mean they would have an imbalance, and they've really got to think about their programming. Now, you think if you're doing snatches on one arm over the course of a year or so, you're going to develop a bit of an imbalance, and then the injuries are going to start to come into play. So you've got to think, right, okay, right, I can do snatches, but like, how do I what's the knock-on effect? How do I avoid these injuries taking place? So how do I do exercise on the other side in order to balance everything out? Which is like, programming is hard enough on its own, let alone programming for someone that would need that sort of that level of care.
And coaching adaptive sport, it's a minefield, and there's like we said throughout this podcast, there's so many unknown challenges that can come up tomorrow that you're just not prepared for, and it's just having that sort of attitude of, okay, this is happening now, okay, got to be ready for this now, got to adapt our training ways, our methods, potentially our whole approach have got to change because of a progressive disability or a recessive disability, or something new cropped up, a different event, a different many things I can mention here, but being adaptable, I'm trying to think how to sort of summarize this now. So being adaptable in an adaptive sport is probably the key. And the coaches definitely deserve a massive amount of respect and plaudits for what they do for their athletes.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with everything you've said today, man. Absolutely. Cool, Daniel. I think we'll leave it there.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, mate.
You've been amazing. So obviously you're a coach. Let's try and get you some business. If you want to give us a shout out of where you train, and also your Instagram, so any of my listeners can give you a follow and see what you do.
Yeah. So I work at the PT studio here in Wigan. See the sign behind me, carefully placed. We on Facebook and Instagram at the PT studio. If you search that, put it in on Google, it will come up there. For myself, if you're wanting to follow myself and my athlete journey, still competing, as I've said, so follow me on Instagram at Daniel Dawoud. That's Dawoud. If you're wanting to get in touch about training and any sort of personal one-to-one or group PT stuff, on Instagram and on Facebook at DDPT_adaptive training on Instagram, and on Facebook you put in DDPT adaptive training, it should pop up there. And I'm also on Twitter, Danny_Dawoud.
Fantastic, guys. You know what to do. Give Daniel a follow. Daniel, it's been amazing having you on. Thank you so much for sparing some of your time today. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope in the future you'd come on again as well, and we can see how you've progressed and maybe talk about some more of the people you've worked with.
Definitely. Be a pleasure. Awesome.
Daniel, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, mate.
See you, buddy.